Today I'm going to be tying up the purple Cascade. It's a very effective Cascade for small spate rivers. Okay, so just added on my white thread. I'm going to add on some gold wire or gold tinsel, it's entirely up to yourself, which is going to create a tag and a rib for this fly. Okay, I'm going to bring that thread up to just above the hook points, and then I'm going to create my tag. Probably half a dozen wraps with this wire. Depending on the thickness of the wire and everything else, you might want to do less or more, depending on your preference. Okay, so I've put it in through the middle hook there, and a few turns underneath to secure that in. Then I'm going to bend my wire back again. Okay, and that will save me having to cut and add on more later on. Okay, but I haven't gone right up to the tag yet. I'm going to hold off there as we get the tail ready. Okay, so for the tail of the fly, it's a little bit different from the Cascade. So instead of just orange and yellow, I have a mixture of orange, yellow, and also purple here. Okay, I have a few wee favourites. I'm going rogue here, so let's get those out. Okay, and because they've been levelled, I'm going to just tease out just a couple, just to get a wee bit of a taper. Okay, length is entirely up to yourself. I like to do probably about twice the length of the shank. Okay, and I'm going to tie it on slightly in front to give me plenty of time to make any adjustments if needs be. Okay, but I'm happy enough with that length, so I'm going to do another couple of turns. Okay, and then I'm going to grab some flesh. You could use pearl, but I'm going to use purple, just keeping with the theme. Okay, so this is purple crystal flesh. And I'm just going to use 2 strands and double them back over. So essentially it's 4 strands on top. Okay. Cut them to size, so probably about 3/4 of the tail. They're slightly shorter than the tail itself. Okay. And again, just have a look. And then just before I tie this in at the tag, I want to add on about a centimetre or 2 of super glue. Then I hold this tail up and I secure that in. Okay, and that will prevent it from splaying, but the super glue will give a very secure hold, and as well as that, it will continue to kick that tail up to prevent tail rips through bad casting. Okay, or windy days. It's usually bad casting. Okay, and then I'm just going to level off that body. Okay, and again, you want this to be as level as possible because it's going to be a tinsel body, but I am going to use flat braid, so it doesn't need to be as level as normal. Okay, happy enough with that there. So next thing, as I said, I'm going to add on some gold flat braid. Okay, and I don't add this on right at the tag or right at the tail. I add on slightly before, and the reason being is the first wrap takes up quite a bit of space, so before you know it, you could be wrapping on top of your tail, which we don't want. Okay, so before I start the wrap, I'm just going to add on some super glue, and this will make an even more durable fly. That's the joys of tying your own flies. Whenever you buy them shop bought, you can't guarantee that they've got this built-in durability. They don't really last after a few casts or after a few fish. Then we just do 1 full turn, okay, at the tag, and then overlapping turns as we go along. And as I said, it's very forgiving, so if there's any lumps and bumps, it doesn't really matter too much on the braid. But if you were using flat tinsel, it would. Okay, and then just come in and secure that. Use your scissors and cut off the excess. Okay, if you're not happy with the kick of the tail, one wee hint you can do is if you want, you can lift up the tail and do the first wrap of your rib, and that instantly kicks it up. Okay, and then you do 4 or 5 turns up the body. Okay. few turns to secure in the wire, and then holding the bobbin pressure, you can just unravel the wire by twisting it off. Sorry. Okay, so now I'm just going to build up a little bit of a shoulder for the wing, or else it'll kick too high. Okay. For the wing of the fly, I'm going to use, it's actually, instead of, you can use any purple hair, but I'm going to use grey squirrel dyed purple. Okay, just something that I don't use too often, so I want to get it used up. As well as this is quite a big fly for me, and it's probably going to be fixed in streamy water, so the squirrel probably suits better than fox anyway. Okay, in terms of length, I probably wanted to go just to the end of the hook. So what I'm going to do is add on some wax for durability, but I will be super gluing it as well. Okay, I'm just making sure I've got a good hold of this. And then a pinch and loop, a few turns first of all, and have a look at that there. Okay, making sure it's not all splayed to one side. And I'm going to add on an inch of super glue. And tie that on another few wraps on top. Okay, then while you're holding the super glue, you could probably start cutting, or you could wait a wee minute till the super glue dries. Okay, then come in with a pair of sharp scissors. Okay, and then just start cutting those fibres. You can also use the scalpel blade if you wanted. Something I've used in the past, but this seems to work just as good. Another alternative is cutting before you tie in, but it's fairly permanent then if you're not happy with hard sitting. Okay, I've enough of that there. Okay, just neaten that up a little bit. Okay, so I'm also going to add in a little bit of flesh on top here. Okay, just something else just to add a wee bit of attraction. And again, cut the length, whatever you think is suitable for the size of the wing. Okay, next we're going to add on our hackle. Okay, so two different types of hackle here. So I'm going to use fluorescent yellow, and I'm going to use hot orange. Okay, so first one's going to be fluorescent yellow, and this can be a little bit longer if you wanted than hot orange. Okay, so just take a feather, and then I like to break off the tip, and then with some wax and thread, I like to tie in at that tip. A few turns forward, double it back, and a few turns on top of itself. Okay, then just use your scissors, blunt end of your scissors, double that hackle in. Okay, and just in touch and turns, you can do 2 or 3 wraps. It's entirely up to yourself, but for this size of fly, I'm probably going to do 3 wraps. Okay, then come in and secure it. Again, your thread will have the wax on it. It'll give a very secure hold. Okay, add a little bit more wax on. And then I'm just going to get a hackle for the hot orange. And as before, just break off the tip. Expose 4, 5, 6 fibres. Okay. few turns forward, double it back, and a few turns on top itself. Okay. I'm just going to probably do 2 turns of this here. That'd be more than enough. Okay, and then come in and finish that off. Okay. And then going forward, just do a few wraps to get it back up. I'm going to add on some wax on the thread here too. So it's just a bit of slippage at the head. Okay. Also going to add on some eyes. So these are just small jungle cock eyes on each side. A few light turns first of all, and see how they look. I'm happy enough on your side, but not on my side. Okay, then once you're happy with that there, just get a bit of super glue. Put it on about an inch of the thread, and this will give me a secure hold of that jungle cock. As well as that, it'll help me tie off the thread so we can get the glossed head on. Another wee bit of super glue there. Okay, so this will actually save me doing a whip finish. So I'll be able to just cut this off. Okay, so before we get our flossed head on, now the super glue is starting to dry a good bit, we can trim off our excess. Okay, and just get our flossed head, just add it on as we would of any thread. Because that super glue is a little bit tacky still, it's actually going to prevent slippage, so it's worked in our favour. Okay. And you can build up a head as big as you want. You could build it up as big as a cone head, or you just build it up as a small head. It's personal preference, but I just like to make sure that all the white's covered at least. And then I do a few turns with the whip finish tool. And that head will look really well with a few coats of super glue and varnish. And that is your purple Cascade, folks. Hopefully you found that useful. As always, if you did, check out my other videos coming up on screen now. Until next time, thanks very much. All the best.